Good morning. I'm Jeremy Stinton, Strategy Director of ST16, Big Button and Buto.tv, and we'll just make a start. I'm not sure there's anybody else to come today. So just so you understand how our company is built up, Big Button is the sort of holding company, as it were. ST16 specialise in viral and social video content production and idea generation, and Buto.tv is our online video platform. So what I'm going to talk about today, and I'm standing in for Simon Croft, who's our creative director today. He was billed to do this session. I'm going to talk very briefly about some of the steps that you can take to actually get social video content right. I'll take you through a couple of our campaigns that we've done actually for the NHS, which have got very tangible results for the clients, and I'll also take you through a commercial example of a Tesco Christmas social video campaign that we ran. So ST16, we specialise in influential and engaging content that people actually want to share, and this is all about getting results for clients. Now, we specialise in video content rather than any other forms of content. Now, how do we actually get those results? What's some of the processes that we go through to actually make sure that the campaign delivers and the content is useful and spread and distributed for the client? Our first tip is always to make sure that the video is a key part of the campaign. That's either the core of the campaign, that the idea of the rest of the campaign is perhaps based on, but essentially it's not some sort of afterthought video piece of content. You know, you come up with the rest of the campaign, you've got a bit of extra budget to spend, and you just spend it on video. That's very unlikely to work. Having some sort of theme, some sort of creative concept that runs through the entire video and then the campaign is what's most likely to work. But ultimately, if we're creating some sort of social video, online video content, we want our audience to talk about it, distribute it, and that really starts with the marketing basics. That's really knowing your audience, understanding them, what do they think about the brand, what's going to change their perception about the brand, and also understanding where they are online, what conversations they're having online, what conversations we can actually plug into that's going to make them take that piece of video content on board and start talking about it and sharing it. And the way we typically do that is our three-stage research process that we typically run across most of our campaigns. So stage one is this sort of getting under the skin of the audience, really understanding everything we can about them in the way that I described. So, you know, where are they online? What do they think about the brand? Answering all those questions up front before we go anywhere near some sort of creative session. Now, traditionally that would have been getting people together in groups for sort of focus groups and that kind of thing, and actually talking to a cross-section of the audience. But increasingly we're using electronic tools that allow us to look across all different types of social media platform and aggregate that information and understand you know, what our audience is actually talking about online and what is of interest to them. And then once we've taken that information, come up with some creative concepts, we then test at sort of storyboard stage before we go into production 2 or 3 example creatives and find which gets the best resonance with the target audience. So all the time, obviously any kind of content production process, there is an element of risk. So, but all the time with our research process, we're taking the risk out of that. So we know by the time we get to the end of the process, the content is likely to resonate with the audience and be talked about. So the final stage, once we've actually put the thing into production, is to actually test the end film. That allows us to test different variations of end taglines, tweak the edit, and that sort of thing at that stage. So once we have our piece of content and that's been created, we obviously need to get that out there to the masses and kickstart that conversation process. And in this day and age, because of the way everybody, like YouTube, etc., is trying to gear their channels towards monetization increasingly, we always recommend some sort of pay-per-click, pay-per-view model to kind of kickstart that process. So you know you're going to get a guaranteed number of views to start that process. We'll then sort of plug into other social channels, Facebook, etc., Twitter, as you'd expect. Making sure as well that we get the video SEO right around the content. So if we're posting content on YouTube, ensuring that the description and headline and all the rest of it tie into what we know our audience is talking about, and that information obviously we've got from the research process. We also find PR is kind of crucial, both offline and online. PR is crucial to kind of generating buzz around video content. And if we get it right, we'll create this sort of virtuous circle with PR in that we can kind of go out to various channels, bloggers, whatever, and say, hey, we've got this new bit of content, this is really interesting. They start the conversations about it, and then the scale of the conversations then becomes a story in itself that people then go on and talk about further. But to sort of put this into some sort of practice, I'm going to talk through a case study that we produced for the NHS called Vampire. Now this was all about getting 18 to 25-year-old males to the dentists. We'd obviously been through the research process, and unsurprisingly, what we found the driver for them potentially to go into the dentist was making sure their appearance was right and attracting a member of the opposite sex. So no great surprises there, but we sort of obviously used that as the influence to the film, as well as looking at other kind of social contexts that were going on at the time. So this is all about getting people to the dentist, and this is the piece of content we created.
What's your problem?
Your breath stinks. Have you seen the state of your teeth?
I have a problem with mirrors.
It don't cost much to see a dentist, you know. Looks like something died in there. You make me feel sick. I think I actually just threw up a little bit. Thought you were alright till you opened your gob. Go on.
So this was, we used a lot of Facebook pay-per-click to drive traffic to this particular piece of content, because that was particularly relevant for the audience. But one of the interesting things about the campaign was because we'd got the keywords attached to the video right, and our description, etc. If you Googled NHS dentist at the time the campaign was running, then that would pop up as one of the lead search results. Obviously vitally important for the client. Similarly, it created a huge amount of press buzz around the place. Sort of key publications there like the Mirror, Mail, etc. all featured it, as well as people like FHM, obviously very close to the target audience, which was a great coup for the client. But critically, we were about results and gaining results for the client. And in the regions that actually participated in this campaign, they actually saw a 52% increase in young people in that demographic attending the dentist. So I'm just going to move on to talk about Steamed Up, which is another sort of young person campaign, viral campaign for the NHS, which was aimed at young drivers aged sort of 18 to 25, 24. This audience, perhaps unsurprisingly, when they go out in their car, they're not necessarily concerned if they have a crash that they will kill somebody or injure somebody, they tend to worry about, oh, my insurance premium might go up, or I might have a dent in my nice shiny new car. But the object of this campaign was actually to get people thinking differently and critically talking online around that message, around that topic. And this is the piece of content that we came up with.
Vicky. Vicky. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Vicky. 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 I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Vicky.
So the results of that campaign, that film had over 6 million views on YouTube, but most importantly, created a real buzz online around the message. People were clearly taking on board the message and talking about it on social media channels, as well as being picked up by the likes of the BBC, the Daily Mail, etc. I think the Daily Mail probably drove about 300,000 views to that particular piece of content when it was featured on their website. Now, those first two campaigns that I've talked about were all distributed on YouTube, but obviously that's not always relevant for every campaign, or YouTube won't necessarily allow you to do everything you need to for every campaign. So I'm just going to talk very briefly about Buto, our online video platform, and an example of a campaign that we did for Tesco's there. Just to kind of gauge, because it's quite a small group, is everybody here from sort of other streaming platforms and online video platforms and that sort of thing? Does everybody, just quick show of hands, does everybody fundamentally understand what an online video platform is and what it does? And yeah, okay. So I am just going to skip the the short section on that. So move straight into the case study. Okay, this is a case study about something we created for Tesco's. This was a Christmas campaign. They basically, as usual, wanted to generate some sort of buzz around the brand, but critically being Tesco's, they want to gather lots of data about their customers, and this campaign was that was sort of key to the campaign. Their target audience, of course, for this was customers and potential customers. So what we created for them here was this clickable video sort of microsite, which we worked alongside their digital agency to create. This uses the clickable hotspot technology of our Buto platform, which allows you to actually place clickable hotspots around objects within the video content. So how that worked in this particular instance was they ran a sort of spot the difference competition, that as the video played and the video played through with the video on sort of two sides of the window, and viewers needed to spot the difference between the two films. So you can see the difference in colour of the thing he's got in his hand there. So viewers would click on that and it would register it as a difference. And once they got to the end of the video, critically they entered their email details and that sort of thing to be entered into a prize draw. Now that campaign worked phenomenally well for Tesco's. Not only did it generate a huge amount of buzz and drive a lot of traffic to the site, they had 80,000 entries in the first 2 weeks, and you can just kind of imagine the amount of email data that they managed to generate off the back of that campaign, which they obviously bombard people going forward with further marketing messages, but I didn't say that. So that pretty much concludes what I've got to say today. Has anybody got any questions on what I've talked about?
I'm just wondering about the various demographics you've talked about. I came in slightly later, you may have covered this, but I'm interested in the process about how you go about selecting the right platform and matching that to the demographic, the target audience of the content you're producing. Because obviously the first two, the vampire and the road safety one were about a very young audience. Tesco is a much more large general audience.
Yeah, I think that's sort of understanding the audience, but also sort of balancing the advantages of YouTube, i.e., you know, there's a pre-built audience for you, all the search benefits, etc., versus obviously the negatives of potentially, you know, your content is aligned with content that you don't want to be aligned with, and obviously it's limited in functionality versus something like our Buto platform. Obviously you can't do clickable hotspots. You know, it wouldn't have been possible to run that Tesco's campaign without the facility of our Buto platform. So it's really sort of assessing the needs of the campaign and the audience in that way.
Did the Christmas campaign, did that sit inside Tesco.com then, when you were looking at it?
I think effectively it was that is something that I'd need to double check actually, but effectively it was its own sort of microsite, so its own sort of landing page, and had its own URL which was being circulated by social media. Whether that was a tescos.com / something or other, I don't know, I must admit. Anybody else?
I've just got a general question, Jeremy. We had an interesting keynote presentation this morning about storytelling, and it was by Jason Vilo, who works for Limelight Networks, which is a CDN. I've never seen a CDN give a presentation about storytelling. It was nothing about the technology of the CDN at all. And there's a lot of streaming people here at this event, but this is interesting, I think, because it's about how you apply the technology to something which makes sense to the customer, rather than just trying to sell them storage.
Technology, yeah.
Something as a pure technical facility. And I wonder how easy it is from your perspective to have those conversations with clients, because we find a lot of clients are looking at using online video in some form, but not very many of them have a very clear idea of what to do with it, how to use it, what they can expect to get out of it, how to plan campaigns. So do you find yourself really trying to educate the market, or do you find that people that you're talking to are already pretty switched on and just come to you and tell you what they want to do?
I mean, it really depends on the client. Obviously, we deal with a broad spectrum of clients, but fundamentally, my job is to go in there and help clients understand how they can actually use the platform. So, some clients bought us purely, and this is the video platform side at the moment, bought us purely as a technological solution, but obviously they're only using one small part of the platform. So obviously, what I'm doing increasingly is to kind of widen that out and give them advice from the content all the way through to actually the technology side.
And do you hold out bright hopes for the future that we can go to the big clients and convince them of the value of this because we can present them with good solutions, or do you think it's going to be an uphill struggle?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be stood here having this conversation if I didn't think that was entirely possible. And just so the rest of the audience understand, I, with my business partner, originally set up ST16, the content creation side, and have merged it with Buto in recent months, exactly for that reason, because we strongly believe there's an offering in that area. Yeah.
Can I just add something to that discussion? I think one of the greatest questions that quite a few people in this room know are the greatest question which is difficult to ask a client, because sometimes they come for a great bit of content, they want a beautiful film, they want a platform, is when we do this, what do we want people to do next? And sometimes you sit in a meeting and there is a very blank look why are we even attempting this? Because we don't know what the outcome, you know, we have an outcome, if it's pure, and it could be a numbers game, I want 100,000 people to see. Great, that's something we can measure. Or I want people to click through and give us an email address, or in the question, with the Tesco example, literally drive us to get 80,000 responses via email. But it's a scary question to ask sometimes, because we all like to do business with these big clients, but sometimes asking it leads to a much more fundamental revision of the discussion that you need, because otherwise you end up doing one great project and everybody goes, well, we all felt good about that, didn't we? And we move on to the next one and there's no real outcome to measure.
Yeah.
I think that's the risk. I mean, I've been here before with previous products before streaming was actually developed. And if you simply take the money and run because the client wants to give you some money to do a project, they'll do 1 or 2 a year and they'll disappear because they don't really understand the value and they move on to something which appears to give them a much better return. So my view of where we are at the moment in terms of presenting our solutions and services to the market is that we need to be very, very careful to make sure that we demonstrate the value with good evaluation and analysis post-project and a clear understanding of the objective beforehand. Because if we know what we're trying to deliver and we deliver it or over-deliver, we'll keep coming back for many, many years to come, and it won't just be a flash in the pan.
And I think there's a really interesting development of multiple ways of returning investment on products at the moment. I'm working on stuff where there's 5 or 6 different measures of what's being returned to the client, where, you know, it's about Facebook likes, but it's also about products being sold, it's about interaction, it's about data gathering, and it's also about advertising sales in one case. And when you merge together, it makes an incredibly compelling argument with, we're not only returned on one level, we're returned on multiple levels. So that's why we do one of these every 4 weeks. And I think that mix of model is becoming really interesting. As you say, it's multiple ways Tesco can use that data, it's multiple ways, you know, and just general exposure has a value to it. There's lots of different metrics, and I think we've got to get more sophisticated in the way we put those forward to clients and present them back.
Yeah, I mean, we frequently come across, you know, clients will talk to us and we'll start asking exactly those questions about ultimate objectives. And actually, well, very often it delays the start of the project because they then go back and rehash part of their marketing strategy off the back of it, which, yeah, there's some short-term pain obviously for us. But, you know, as you said, Steve, if ultimately you get that project right, then, you know, there's longevity in the client and the project. Yeah. Any further thoughts? Okay, well, thank you very much for listening, and I'm around for a bit if anybody wants to chat further. Thank you.